My name's Chris.
And I'm Kristie.
This is the Washing Up Podcast, and it's the rewatch of Holiday Week.
Ho, ho, ho.
What are you calling
Merry
me?
Everything. Oh, it's my nickname for you.
Was it
now.
me? Were you calling me ho?
It's my, come here, my little ho. Oh. It's very, it's a term of endearment.
It's a term of endearment. We are the whitest people alive. Anyway,
totally the whitest people alive.
So,
I think, as the Jews would call us, we are gentiles. Is that the word?
Yes.
There we go.
And that's going to come up later on, of course, when we talk about the technical bake. But we'll come to that in a moment, because there's a lot to go. Now, obviously, we're doing this the day after. We decided last night that we want to be at our best for you.
Yeah.
And it had been a really fucking long day. So
yes.
It was
a bit of a rough day for me, so.
Yeah, and it was a bit of a long day for me. So we decided that we'd record it, again, a day after the fact. And in the meantime, give you a chance to listen to one of our best, I think.
Now, one of the things I'm paranoid about now, because I didn't listen to it, is am I going to be cracking the same jokes?
Okay, two things.
Yeah.
One,
yeah,
probably. Two, yes. No one cares.
Okay.
Three, maybe we can punch up the delivery a little bit.
I've practiced them before. The rehearsal's done. Now we're going to...
Here's the good news. I did re-listen yesterday.
Oh, did you? Did I say ho, ho, ho?
No.
Oh.
There's a couple of other things I'm pretty sure that are going to pop up, though.
Okay.
But we're going to talk about it in a different order anyway. We're not going to go through the way we did it previously, and this is what we've done with the whole of the rewatch, because what we're doing is we're revisiting this show and talking about it now, one, with the context of having seen a lot of it.
Yep.
Two, having seen and spoken to some of the bakers.
Yep.
Three, in the spirit of, and this is something that came out of a lot of the tweeting last night when I was doing the live tweeting, was a lot of people have come back and sort of tweeted out, if you guys are 100% right, this is the show we need at the moment.
Yeah. This is perfect ISO COVID-19 fodder.
In a world where everyone's been taking to the shit in terms of, things like, I'm not going to specify things like Bachelor in Paradise or, the corona-affected masked singer.
Proving that it takes, you can't, masks aren't effective if just one person is wearing it. Everyone's going to be wearing them to make them effective. That said, there was evidence that came out of the United States where the Starbucks, the employees who'd been wearing masks, were less likely to catch corona.
That's a good idea. Wear a mask. Although wear a mask that might be like a giant cowboy head. That's probably not as effective. And a kidna. To be honest with you, I have not watched a second of The Masked Singer. I just found it really hilarious to watch all of these singers going out before the celebrities. For example, I haven't watched a minute of The Masked Singer, and I know for a fact that Julia Morris is there and still in. Yeah. And meanwhile, Christine Arnoux and Sophie Monk.
Oh, was she one?
Apparently she was.
Oh.
Yeah,
but she was in Bardo.
Yeah, but that prompted an article today in the Australian media where the Bardo members were pissed off because she was far too busy to do a Bardo reunion. Turns out she's got time for The Masked Singer. So
who is pushing for a Bardo reunion?
The four fans are out there singing Poison over and over.
That's two more than, what was the other one? Nothing Nice or whoever they were.
I don't even remember anymore.
Spring for You.
What about Young Divas, which were all the ones that didn't win, the ones who didn't end up winning Australian Idol?
Yes, I did hear about them. I wasn't interested in reality TV during that phase. But
they were performing at RSL clubs and Kate
Ricky
Lee. Didn't Kate DeRouge win? I don't know. I don't remember. We're getting into the deep waters of the really bad reality TV when what we need to be in is the warm waters of Holiday Week.
Yes.
Now,
I am there. I reckon this should have had more of a National Lampoon's theme.
Go ahead.
I really feel that Linda's Barn, great. You put some lights on it. Would Chevy Chase be into that? Not so much.
Chevy Chase would have wanted more.
Yeah, exactly. This is Griswolded up.
Now, what I really appreciated, by the way, is that...
when you switch it on, I want to see explosions. I want to see neighbours complaining that it's so bright. I want the ISS just to fly over and go, what the fuck is that?
My favourite part of this whole Holiday Week idea, by the way, was that they wanted to... I think kudos to the production team.
Yeah.
Because the production team wanted to make their Australian audience, several years down the track, feel like it was Christmas by doing fucking Christmas baking in the middle of summer.
Yeah.
And look, thank you. We appreciate you. We appreciate all you did for us.
Yeah.
We appreciate the fact that, much like many people in Australia, you went with a winter theme when it's fucking boiling outside.
And look, if it was filmed in July, they're doing Christmas in July, which is an Australian thing because, having a pork roast and all that Yule stuff, unless you're pagan, because we do that, is like unusual.
Flashback to the first podcast, number 1.
Oh.
The Christmas in July fact.
Oh, okay, there we go.
So, keep a scorecard at home. Every time it happens, ding.
Yeah.
So, but no, we talked about that on the first podcast. And, of course, we had Leah add for the jokes on for that one as well.
Well, there's something different.
So we don't have Leah on.
No.
Or a bird chirping in the background. So, anyway.
You gonna meow, Polly?
No, we're not going to get the cat meowing. So let's move into the episode, and we're not going to do this in the normal order. We're going to talk about the showstopper first. Why? Because I sort of sizzled the hell out of this. For the last week, I've been tweeting non-stop.
This is your favourite showstopper.
This is my favourite showstopper. I think
with your favourite baker.
I think this is the best showstopper they've done.
Yeah.
I still think it's the best showstopper they've done, and they've done some great ones in season 2 and 3. This is, I think, the best one they've ever done. And
is
again,
it because it's not so, for me, it's not so much the task itself, but the execution.
I think the execution. We've seen gingerbread houses done and those sorts of things before. I think this is a different version. Like all the other gingerbread house challenges, you've seen, like again, the one in British that always stands out is Candace's pub.
Yeah.
But I think
the Taj Mahal.
That wasn't for a gingerbread house challenge.
No, that was
a biscuit challenge, just a general biscuit challenge. And remember, Australian made the fatal mistake the other year of getting them to build houses, but not out of gingerbread, which was a bit of a stupid idea. Anyway,
and considering the construction issues in Australia, in the past couple of years.
Sorry, Nicole, to call that a stupid idea, but come on, who are we kidding?
Come on,
who are we kidding? Gingerbread is the superior design for. Anyway, so. What I love about this challenge is that
there were 3 little pigs. The first one's making it out of fucking cannoli shells. And this is just breaking all over the place, The second little pig goes a little bit harder, gets some Scotch fingers in there, but first rain, it melts. Get the gingerbread in, that wolf is not getting in.
It's far more solid.
Unless it's gingerbread coated in meat, because then wolves would eat the meat.
So we're dealing with, obviously, the gingerbread houses, and again, the execution is incredible. And again, it also is an episode that features everybody doing really well, even poor Terry, and we'll talk about Terry in a minute.
Look, Terry didn't serve up any massive disasters.
No.
They were just small things that just didn't go her way.
And we'll talk about that in a moment with Terry in particular, but we do need to focus on the fact that, first of all, it was a fantastic bake for two bakers that I'm, greatly got an affinity with. We'll begin talking about Vandana, Chris' favourite baker. Vandana, what's she baking today? A fucking amazing treehouse is what she's baking today.
Don't push Polly away. Look, Polly's coming to join in because we don't have a bird.
It's not a visual medium. Anyway, so Vandana and the treehouse. Now, I retweeted, by the way, the photo because she made it, of course, for her son.
Yeah. Niam.
And Nam didn't get to play with it, obviously, because she did it for Bake Off.
Yeah.
But she recreated it for his 4th birthday.
Which is awesome.
Which is brilliant.
But
and
have
amazing.
you built him the real treehouse yet, Vandana?
Is there actually a real... If you happen to be listening, is there a real treehouse?
You built 2, edible ones. Where's the real one? I'm just asking because your son... finally disappointed when you had these ideas about the trees in your backyard. That's right, Polly. And he's like, I'm getting a treehouse for my birthday, and you forget to mention that's a cake.
Anyway, it's amazing. The treehouse, the detail on the treehouse, as they pointed out in the judging of the treehouse, the strawberries in the garden, and
the little balls, and the duck pond,
the way that she did the pond, and this is something
the grass that was piped.
Yep. So again, the piping of the grass, the construction of the gingerbread as well, the fact that she clearly had thought this through, and so you had what you would get with those paper kits where you build buildings, and you got the slots interweaving it. She thought about that. She thought all that through.
But that also showed off the fact that the actual technique of the gingerbread had to be good, because you couldn't have something that was too crispy and would break.
Yep.
I mean, she had a bit of a breakage, but she fixed it. But it couldn't be too soft, otherwise it just bend.
Exactly, and you don't want a bendy treehouse.
No, when you're trying to slot your wood together.
You don't want a bendy treehouse when you're slotting your wood. So I thought the interesting thing was too...
the tree.
Of course you better do that. So I thought the interesting part of this was colour. So when we look at, for example, what happens with Terry, and we'll do a bit more detail on Terry, but they both had similar levels of colour. It was the way that Vandana used it, which was just, it was to accent the treehouse. The treehouse itself and the design and the structure was the focal point.
Yeah.
And like the colour that was used accented the gingerbread.
See, I was looking at Terry's and I felt like her piping tips were too thick. Like,
possibly.
Like, you know, like...
Yeah, a little bit broader lines than you want. Because, normally when you think gingerbread and you're thinking like an outline, you're thinking a fairly thin...
Or if you're going to do it, like, not quite that thick, I think it should have been about half the size. But, you know, I'm not an expert. I'm just a TV watcher with a podcast.
I'm just a TV watcher with a podcast.
Yeah.
So we need some merchandise now. Just a shirt. I'm just a TV watcher with a podcast. It's your own shirt. Done. Anyone wants to design that logo for us?
I'll update my Twitter bio.
I'm just a TV watcher with a podcast. It's a good one. So I think that what Vandana did in terms of the colour of that treehouse and the way that she constructed the whole idea of it was just spectacular. And like you could see that they wanted them to push, and this was a theme that developed all the way through.
Yeah.
Was they were talking about people pushing themselves.
Yeah. And if it wasn't, like, there were two things that were kind of the strengths here from what the feedback I heard was. One is the story.
Yep.
So James, yes, skill level on point. Yeah, he went, okay, we're not going to put the extension on because I burnt it. Bit of an accident there. I presume, you know, bit of, like, trying to...
Well, we'll get into James in a minute.
Make your own...
I'm going to give my Patronus...
I presume that's where his home brewing still was.
Oh, 100%. Boom, bang, kapow. Ooh, must have been that bean I ate.
And if it wasn't the story, then it had to be the execution of the
bake.
The bake. Yes. So I feel that...
Vandana had both.
Both, yeah. She conveyed a story and her execution was phenomenal.
Yeah. So, obviously, Vandana's treehouse was spectacular, but they said they were all pretty good. Let's get to my Patronus.
Yes.
So, James, that absolutely amazing concept of the eco home.
With giant worms.
With the giant worms. The giant worm, when every time I watch this, whenever he produces the giant worm thing, it makes me sort of squeal a little bit. I just love it. I don't know why. I think it's absolutely brilliant. And here's the thing that I love, and we'll get into the house in a minute, and obviously what he did with the solar panels.
Yeah.
But what I love about this on Rewatch, and we focused on the house the first time, pay attention, if you go back and look at this again, pay attention to the detail in the grounds.
Yep.
So first of all, the soil, obviously, but he constructed the little garden beds.
Yep.
He builds the outside. The way he constructs the complete landscaping around the outside of it, including the worm farm, is incredible.
Even the attention to detail of putting in the nail holes in the, it's all beautifully like just thought out, and because it looks so simple, you know that the skill into it is quite high. Just on a note on giant worms, though.
Oh, no.
I hope I didn't dream this, but there is a giant worm in Australia, isn't there? There's like
There's always a giant
There's a giant pineapple, the big...
Oh, yeah, the big worm, yeah.
Big worm.
Morwell.
Yeah, I've been there.
Morwell, Victoria.
I've walked through it. I've seen the worms. I was through one of the only family holidays I can remember. There's a couple. There's a couple to Safala, but this was down to Melbourne. And unfortunately, my sister got to fly down with her gymnastics team, and I had to drive down with my mum and dad. That was fun because it was in the years when they were fighting. So in a very hostile environment, I got to go to this worm farm. I think it was on the way back. I think Catherine was there. Learnt all about worms, got to walk through a big worm. Just feel that it's... You know, if you're in Victoria, it's something that you're missing out on now you're in lockdown. I'm sorry, Victorians. I shouldn't talk about road trips when you can't even walk 5 kilometres outside of your house. You know, no Brighton for you if you've done it all.
Right. So the Earthworm Museum. Oh, it's actually in Bass. So I thought it was in Morwell, but it's actually in Bass. So the Giant Earthworm Museum.
Yes.
It's a giant worm.
And I think they had a mascot called Willy Worm, or I might be completely off.
I really now hope they have one.
Yeah.
But that's because there are the largest variety of earthworms on Earth, which are 3 foot long.
There you go, James.
And they grow 6 to 10 foot. So that's the thing. James was actually demonstrating Australia again. This is all about Australia.
He had an Australian solar house.
And yeah, more important, the solar house. Look, everybody else had snow.
Yep.
James...
Solar,
which is a very Australian thing because, we get a lot of sun here. Mm-hmm. So let's go into the solar, shall we? So I loved the fact that obviously using this, the science background means he's going to be thinking outside that square a little bit.
Yep.
I loved, as you pointed out, when he burnt the other one, he goes, look, houses are getting too big nowadays. We don't really need
tiny house revolution.
We don't need the extension.
If you're watching Netflix, there's always a tiny house show on.
Yep, there's tons of tiny house shows. If you go, Netflix has them. Also, there's a great series on YouTube, Tiny House Revolution.
I've got friends that are obsessed with tiny houses. One of them kind of got something with a little caravan pod thing, and it looks like a teardrop. It's it's not as big as a teardrop. It's actually bigger. It's like a giant's tear, but it's a caravan. She loves it. Got another friend who actually has a gypsy caravan. Oh, sorry. No, that's a slur. I'm so sorry. A Romany caravan.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, just saying that, tiny houses are cool. Not that I'd ever want to live in one because I've got a huge butt. No, seriously, tiny houses are great if you're not a fat person. And people who are listening for the first time, I use fat because I'm a fat activist. I am fat. It's just a fucking descriptor. No big deal. And I look at these tiny houses and I'm like, do they come in a 4XL? Oh, I'm living in a 4XL. Okay, we don't need to, just...
We have a 2-story tiny house.
It's a tiny house that's relevant to my ass. I think that we're, you can't fit inside...
There were many things, ladies and gentlemen, that I expected to be discussing. The size of Kristie's ass in a tiny house was not one of them.
It would take up the whole house. I'd just be knocking things down, bumping into things all the time.
You do that anyway.
Exactly. Imagine me in a tiny house. A bull in a china shop or it doesn't explain what would be going on. I would walk in, there would be no more tiny. I'd be like the giant woman. You're I've always wanted to do that though. When you see the Godzilla people.
That's what happens whenever I go to Cockington Green.
The 60-foot. Oh my God! We need to go back to Cockington.
Okay,
Green.
so Cockington Green to before people go, what? It's a miniature village
in Canberra.
Yeah, it's a miniature village in the nation's capital. So if you go again,
and people who say Canberra's boring haven't been to Cockington Green.
Again, there's a football pitch with a streaker running across it. Yeah. It's amazing.
Oh, crazy.
You can do an entire global tour, which is great in a pandemic. You can go and see all sorts of things. You can go see Petra. There's a whole ancient exhibits of the world.
Yeah.
Right? In miniature. It's in miniature.
Exactly. So
you feel like a god. You are a king. You feel like you've created the planet. There's a train that goes around.
Titan amongst men.
Yes. It's one of the few places I feel normal.
Yeah.
That took a minute. So, anyway, back to James's house. Yep. So the lighting, look, he did a really good job on the lighting, and he did say it was available for installs. And with that in mind, I've got a few areas of the house where we could probably do with some solar lights. So, James, if you're free and international travel is a thing, feel free. Come over. We've got some lighting. You can rig it up for us. That'd be great. Let's get to the third of these houses that I want to talk about, Linda.
Yes. The barn.
The effort that Linda went to. And I'm going to say it straight up. Not as pretty. The one that I'm about to reference is not as pretty, obviously, but in style and in everything else, I thought Shroot Farms.
It was very Shroot Farms.
I was waiting for Beats to be in the fields,
or Moe's to come out in a jumper saying "fear."
Yes, with a long beard, so you can fight your fear. But no, Linda's barn that she built was it was worthy of the Amish. They would have loved it.
Little ginger deer.
Ginger deer.
Eating some ginger nuts. Sorry, I'm just stealing from Tim Minchin.
Thank you, Tim Minchin. The work that she put in, though, again, on that little details. First of all, her use of the lights.
Yeah.
And as they said, you have done that before? She's like, no.
No. Hers was better executed in the fact that it kind of tied into the display. Not that... I mean, James had his own power source. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, his is sustainable. If there's an apocalypse, you can
live in James's.
You can continue to live in James's. Whereas... Linda's, you could live in it.
You need to go off grid. That's the problem, yeah.
You'd have to chop down that tree and burn the firewood.
That wouldn't last that long because those trees burn really quickly.
Yeah.
And
I can imagine ginger wood would just turn to ash. Like, you don't even get a flame. It just kind of burns and turns into tasteless ash.
Can I just point out, we literally just had a discussion which involved, in the apocalypse, which gingerbread house could you live in?
Well, what would be the fun one and better for a zombie apocalypse? Vandana's, because you can lift up that ladder and those bloody zombies, you're safe. I mean, the little bastards would be out there like trampling your garden and shit. But when
they'd be eating the strawberries.
Yeah, but you could, throw balls at them, try and knock their heads off as they've decomposed a bit, so you get the headshot in.
Why would you throw balls?
Because you don't have a gun, obviously. You've got the balls there. You can survive on strawberries. There's a water source. You can risk it when the zombies aren't around and are having a zombie nap.
A zombie nap?
Well, they've got to...
No, they don't. They're undead.
Not in my zombie land. They have zombie naps.
In your zombie land, zombies have zombie naps.
Okay, fine. So when you've secured the perimeter of the treehouse...
And they're having a zombie nap.
You can go down
when
and
you
grab
put out
wall.
the zombie hammock...
Yes.
And so the zombies get into the zombie hammock tied to the zombie tree, and they have a zombie nap, then you can go down.
Exactly. Otherwise, you could just put a bucket on a very long rope and, throw it over and just scoop it up.
To be fair, that's a little bit like what I wanted to do with Uber Eats deliveries during pandemic.
Oh, look, over the balcony.
I wanted to have a bucket off the balcony.
Look, don't get me wrong. We've discussed the pulley system off our balcony.
We have. Anyway, so back to Linda's house, because people listening to this in Canada, what the fuck is wrong with them today?
Yeah.
So... Linda's design, the structure, and again, the way that... And we didn't talk about it with James, but we can talk about it now. The windows.
Yes.
James's windows, for a start, they were perfect. Absolutely perfect. Linda's were a slightly different style. Again, we're going for the stained glass idea. Really effective.
Yeah, it gives that little pop of colour. Otherwise, she had the green of the tree. So, gingerbread houses either can be too bland, just the brown and white, like the bake-off decorations, but understood why they went for just the greenery and silver and a little bit of red. But it can either be too bland, where you look like Melania Trump, just, sucking the soul out of the White House at Christmas, which, they're doing it to the whole... Anyway. Or you can go a bit too OTT, like when you... As Linda says, she makes little gingerbread houses for her grandchildren, who I presume are kind of like, how many lollies can I possibly pack onto this? Which I feel is what my niece did when she got a gingerbread house.
Well, they get to decorate. They get to decorate. She says we bring them over and then they each decorate their individual house.
Yeah.
And I like the idea that it's a little bit like, again, to go back to The Office, Pretzel Day.
Yes.
And Michael Scott. Everything. And literally just, I like the idea that her grandkids, get the house, they dunk it in they dunk it in some form of caramel or something, and then just dip it in everything.
Yep, and then just open the door up and just stuff as many lollies inside as you can.
It's all gingerbread, so they can't see the gingerbread.
Merry Christmas. It's a lolly.
It's a lolly with a gingerbread centre.
Or candy, as they would say. What I found lovely about Linda's too is just that little decoration around the trims on the outside. So from the icicles to the little baubles and how it merged in with the lights. So
the way that she did that was lovely. And again, the colour, it was refined elegance with some colour. I really enjoyed the way
it was that good. You could imagine them doing a still animation in front of it. Like Frosty the Snowman or Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. One of those awesome still animations. Maybe, the Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yep.
It was very beautiful.
It was. So, obviously, then we move on from Linda's amazing work. And we go to Sabrina. Now, structurally, let's start structurally.
That was a feat.
It was impressive, and if you were really looking for one you could possibly actually live in, it was her version of Rockefeller Center.
Yes. Now, when they were describing her thing, though, they're like, it's Rockefeller Center made out of gingerbread with ginger people like ice skating. I don't know if they meant gingerbread people or if we're talking like they were very specific about who could go ice skating that day. Like, it's kind of like, oh, it's not summer, so we need to let the gingers run free a bit. You know, like...
Oh, come on. Look, I feel seen.
There's no sunshine, so let the gingers play.
Yes, we're allowed out in that weather.
They can not die when they're ice skating outside in the snow.
It's wonderful. It would be lovely. You know, we'd have like... You know, no sun, the UV factor. What UV
Take
factor?
hats off. You could go ice skating in a sleeveless top.
Yeah, they're in a tank top just skating around.
It's like, aren't you cold? Yes, but Jesus, my skin can feel fresh air finally.
It's amazing. So this is what summer feels like. But I thought there were a couple of things which were really interesting about Sabrina's. So again, the structure size was incredible.
Yeah.
But she sort of, with the decoration...
Phoned it in.
Yeah, she did phone it in. Like, she really did. And that's not a shot. But all the way through this episode, we said they talked about elevating a lot. They talked about raising the level and they talked about pushing yourselves.
Yeah.
And the moment, and I think you can sort of see it in her face after the fact, was when they said, oh, what happened on the back here, where she didn't put any windows or any doors or anything on the back, and it was blank, and Rochelle just goes, did you run out of time? And Sabrina went, no, I just decided not to do the back. And they both went, oh.
There's a lot of corners cut. Like, there could have been like an isomalt or a lolly.
Well, everyone, like the others, made the glass things, and that was what they were looking for that.
And that would have looked really effective.
Because this is the thing.
It's
When she did the building, the building was stuck on windows with like lollies.
Yeah.
And then, so you could have done, if you weren't going to do the glass for that, and I get that because it was a big building, then at the very least, everyone else is making the glass for windows, make the glass for the lakes.
Yeah.
Like, do that for the ice skating rink, and that would have been a chance to demonstrate a skill.
Yeah.
And what Bruno and Rochelle were both saying to her was, look, we think you've taken on an amazing task in terms of the size.
Yeah.
And we think your structure and construction is good. Mm-hmm. But conceptually, this needs to be more.
And the thing is, if you take what was good about Sabrina's, which was the structural integrity, if you take what was good about James's, and that was the story, like the other stuff's good too. If you take what was good out of Linda's, and that was the execution, you put all those three together, you get Vandana's, because her structure and construction had to be good, and the other two pieces were in there too.
And look, I think that Sabrina needed a bit of a kick. And, you know, it was a bit of a push along and she said at the end, she goes, I think I survived literally by the skin of my teeth. Yeah. You know, that was a really close run thing.
And particularly when they pointed out that Linda had, you know, and first time she'd ever put lights in, you know, and they're like, oh, it's the first time you did it. That's great, seeing yourself push yourself.
Yeah, it was great. It was fantastic.
And I think it's good in the lead up because this is the quarterfinals and this is the time when you need to see the bakers kind of go, yep, it's been a long slog, but we're on the downhill run. That doesn't mean you can cruise.
No, exactly.
It needs to be bigger and better.
And then got Terry. Now, first of all, Terry.
Yeah.
We love you and you need to be back on the podcast like in the next immediate future.
Secondly, I'm here for your dream house.
You are?
I would like to have glass that is edible.
Now, we talked about this previously on the first run through of the podcast, but before we get into the house itself.
Yeah.
I do want to point out that Terry, with her gingerbread dream home and stuff like that, was talking about the idea of an animal sanctuary.
That's right.
And to remind everybody, and we are going to repeat something from the first podcast because it bears repeating again because no one has gone along with the theory yet and they really need to. You've got one. It's called Australia Zoo.
And congratulations on the marriage of your eldest.
And her pregnancy, apparently.
Oh, she's pregnant
apparently.
Too. Oh, 3
Insiders and fellow diners were saying.
Let me guess, the little boy? It's going to be called Robert. No, it'll be called Steve, won't it?
Stephen.
Oh, that's cool.
Probably.
Or
named after one of the crocs.
You know, if it's a girl, it could still be called Stevie. Oh my God, that's so cool. I'm looking forward to little Stevie Irwin or Stephen Irwin.
Little Stevie Irwin.
Yes.
That sounds like Stevie Wonder's like cousin.
Little
Stevie Wonder and little Stevie Irwin.
I'd prefer it to be, it's like a little Stevie Nicks impersonator. The child grows up to go, fuck you guys. You know, I don't want to like look after kids. Not animals. I want to be like a witchy...
a witchy singer.
of a band that has numerous affairs. Like, it's just...
That's the aim. That will forever be her dream.
Yeah.
Until that point in time, though, we do need to say congratulations, Terry, but... Like, the subtlety of what you did in going, look, I want to have a farm and I want to have this animal sanctuary.
We see you.
We know, we understand, we get it. All right? We know. Now we can move off.
She's obviously a bit homesick.
Now we can move off the Terry bit and on to actually talking about the house. So we were discussing this in a bit more detail tonight while we were watching Ready to Record. And... I feel like Terry's house, first of all, was great and absolutely brilliant. I had a couple of... I love where she said, for example, with the windows, look, we say it's an old rustic farmhouse and they didn't quite do the fix up the windows.
Yeah.
But I feel like the problem for poor Terry in this episode was that everyone else made a bake-off gingerbread house. And Terry made a gingerbread house that would be absolutely perfect and a home run on any Netflix cooking show.
Yeah, you put her on, what was that, what's the one with Heston? You know what I'm talking about?
Not Ugly Delicious.
No,
it's one
like
of those.
Something Delicious.
Yeah, anyway, one of those, yes.
Yeah.
But yes, so you put her on that one.
Hands down winner.
Home run.
Yeah.
Because it's bright, it's sugary.
It's bold.
Like if you put her on a sugar rush.
And it's the same for her flavours, like on the past three, like, the candy cane innards of the Yule log.
Yeah.
Bûche de nuit.
The bûche de nuit. So...
Oui, oui.
Like her...
Don't want wee flavour in.
And we've talked about this in a few episodes. You could tell for a fact that, like, you can tell Terry's got kids.
Yeah.
She's baking for kids. But
and we see that come through in bakers in different seasons, like different, show...
in different
versions.
Yes. But with Terry's gingerbread house, like, it looked amazing.
Yeah.
It just...
Techniques just let her down, like the sugar just deciding to have a moment.
Which is bad luck. That's just bad luck.
Yeah.
But you could see what she was doing, and it looked great, and I don't think anyone would have turned it away.
But that was served up to me, I'd eat it.
100%.
Yeah.
But, again, the amount of things on there, it also had a very, much, what else can I throw?
Yeah, it's like I want to say the Smarty shingles.
The hundreds of thousands.
Freckle shingles.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was very Flora.
Yes.
To go back to, for those who don't understand what we mean by that, Flora from the Great British Bake Off, who would frequently make the most amazing thing known to man, but then would run out of time because she'd stop to make an entire tray of macarons, for example.
Yeah.
Because I want to accent what I've made with like a tray of macarons, just stuck to the side of it.
Yeah.
Right. And it felt like this with like Terry was going, what else can I throw in? I'll put this on it, and then I'll put this on it, and it was all of the creativity bubbling over at once.
Yeah. So people like James and Linda and even like Vandana definitely and Sabrina to a point were going for more realism, like, not a muted colour, but more restrained. Yeah. Whereas Terry was just like, it's a fucking gingerbread house.
It's a dream house.
And let's make it colourful.
And it was fucking gorgeous.
And like, if you got served up that at the Christmas dinner table,
I'd love
like you...
If Terry can work out a way to send one of those international mail without it breaking, first of all, you're a genius. And second of all, yes. But it looked incredible.
Yeah.
And I think it was brilliant. It was just not Bake Off.
No.
So that obviously ends up being the sort of the fly in the ointment, so to speak.
The nail in the coffin.
The nail in the coffin, the fly in the ointment.
The colourful nail in the colourful coffin.
The very colourful nail in the very colourful coffin. So we come to the technical, and you may or may not pick up, there's an edit point there. Mm-hmm. And the reason is, I put out a call.
Yes.
So I wanted to work out how to pronounce the technical properly.
Yes.
Because we have a friend of the show who we tweet with quite regularly, Jewish, who was explaining last night. I love listening to them as Rugelach. Right. So Michal, who tweets back and forward all the time.
Yeah. Michal.
Yes,
Did I get that right?
Sent us a video explaining the pronunciation.
Yes. Rugelach.
Rugelach. So as she said,
I should probably get back to us and go,
not quite.
Still not quite.
But as she said, the best way to describe it was a bit of popcorn at the back of your throat.
And yeah.
Rugelach. Yeah. So anyway, that was the technical. And I love, can I just say, I love a Bruno technical, and I think out of all of the versions of Bake Off, Bruno does the best technicals. And I'm not just saying that because we've talked to him, he's a lovely man.
No, he's very
legitimately,
thoughtful.
his technicals are superb, and this was genius.
Well, this one came down to being able to follow a recipe with something that looks simple to make. I mean, they didn't have to make the jam. The fillings were kind of like just mix some things together to make the fillings. It was all about reading the recipe and getting that right.
And there were two things that were there were two things that were not instinctive. So the first thing was
The dough.
Which included, apart from the fact you didn't work it,
Cream cheese.
yeah. So you're not thinking that. But secondly, there was a ton of sugar there. Mm-hmm. None of it in the dough.
Yeah.
You had to put the sugar on the outside of the dough.
Yeah, the sweetness really came from everything that was either in it or on it.
And that was incredible. Like the idea of, and that, like they were trying to work out about working the dough, and they all sort of, to some degree, overworked the dough. I love that, James's bit about everything I know, you can put on a small postage stamp. When they said to him at the end, after he came first in the technical, you made it before? Never heard of it. And Linda, I think, spoke for everyone, except for Terry, who had been trading with a friend of hers. When Linda's like, I don't know.
Yep.
I've never seen it, never heard of it.
But how beautiful is it something that is, a staple in the Jewish culture is shared to a wider field of people, and we're now like, oh, that's something new I haven't learned.
It was
and it looks achievable. It looks like someone could actually learn how to make it.
I finished watching this challenge and thought to myself, I might have a go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm quite keen to have a go at this one, actually.
I mean, it's a bake. You get to use a pizza cutter.
They're always the best ones. So in terms of what they had to do, they were apricot and they were chocolate. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of them.
I now want to find out what other fillings you could do in it, because you could do, I guess, like any kind of jam-based ones, but you'd have to pick the right, like a fig jam or something.
Oh, God.
Fig jam. Reminds me of another holiday that I went on with my family, and my mum, I think it was like the mid-90s, we went down to
It is holiday
Canberra.
week, so it works.
We had gone to Cockington Green, but we went to some other kind of like little touristy place that had like, the funny, wacky, like souvenirs and gifts that you could get.
The Canberra Casino.
No. It was the first time we came across fig jam. And if you don't know what that means, fuck, I'm good, just ask me. So Mum had saw that on a T-shirt. She's like, oh, I should get that. And it was the first time I'm kind of like, oh, my mum's naughty. Like, I'd heard it swear before, but I didn't realise how naughty she was.
What I'm terrified about is the moment that your mother discovered what fig jam was.
Yeah.
Is quite possibly one of the watershed moments in your family's existence.
Yeah.
Because it just feels like one of those crossing over points for your mother.
Yeah.
Like, fig jam, I need to get a fig jam. And it just feels like that's the start.
Yes.
And then after that, exponential growth.
Or just little in-jokes.
Into all sorts of random weirdness and gifts.
Yes.
And random videos and fun stuff. So
she is memeing us quite a lot at the moment.
Not many of them make sense.
Let's just say a lot of them come from boomer pages.
Yeah. And they feel like things that you should post on the Facebook group, the group where we all pretend to be boomers. Yes. So in terms of the bake itself, I think that the Rugelach, which I'm just enjoying saying a lot, it's a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie. I like that when you get to clear your throat on it. It's really good. So in terms of that bake itself, though, I thought that
Rugelach.
I thought.
Sorry, I'm just trying
It's addictive, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very much. They came up with at one point, they were talking about this idea of Dan was doing jokes about watching the Rugelach.
Rugelach.
And
channel.
The channel. And then later on they talked about, we come out and Bruno goes, we have to rate your Rugelach, which sounds like a Jewish community TV show.
Look, it could be around Hanukkah, right? You could have a Rugelach channel. Like they have the fireside and like oscillating fan in Australia. Have the Rugelach channel where they're
that could be a lot of fun.
You
but I think that's like I like the idea of a channel. It's just nothing but like an old Jewish woman just sort of sitting in the corner. Why, hello. So
Come in, Bobby. I'll cook you some. Apparently, they've got to be American Jewish, though.
they've always got to be. That's the only accent we have.
Yeah.
So, although you are the queen of accenting, but, in terms of Jewish, it's always a woman from Queens.
Yeah.
Whose boyfriend kicked her out in one of those crushing scenes. No, anyway.
Stop.
Anyway, I know.
There is no style. There is no flair.
And she definitely wasn't there. So, in terms of the rest of that bake, though, the highlight for me was Dan just floating around, and Dan floating around and Julia floating around, trying to. Obviously, they've been told, they're always told don't give away tips, but at the same time, they couldn't because no one really knew what the fuck it was.
No.
The interesting thing with the bake was that if you listen to the judging and the way the judging was done, none of them got it right.
No?
No, they were all raw.
Oh, okay.
They talked about James's looked store-bought.
Oh, okay.
And they talked about at the end, they went, yours were the best.
Out of the raw.
They didn't say great. And all of them were slightly under in the middle.
And they did speak about when they were cooking how the oven temperature kept dropping.
Every time you opened the doors, which was bad news for Terry. Because Terry kept opening it. Mm-hmm. And I think that poor Terry, once she got, I need to check these, and she got into a panic. Yeah. And so she kept opening them, pulling them out, checking them and putting them back in. And they said every time you do that, the core temperature drops and it's got to be right up.
Yeah.
So that was probably the reason why poor Terry's didn't go as well as could have been hoped. But James was first. Vandana was second. Sabrina was third. Linda was fourth. And Terry, unfortunately, fifth.
Yeah. And, I feel like everyone's bûche de Noël were beautiful, but Terry's wasn't as refined and the flavours weren't as on point as everyone else's. Like Linda bringing out the pumpkin.
Yeah, Linda, and we talked
James
about
just singing to me with like chocolate.
Yeah, so we
Sabrina.
So let's get into
So let's get into
the bûche de Noël. Okay. So and sorry Sabrina, we butchered that, but anyway,
let's say it real Australian. Bûche de Noël.
Bûche de Noël.
Bûche de Noël.
So
what about me? I'm a Christmas log filled with cream. I'm a bit on the grog.
What? Can I just say I'm very proud of both of us there because we managed to talk about Bûche de Noël and avoid all of the jokes we made on the first podcast.
Look at us.
We made a lot of jokes about Bûche de Noël. Yeah. Lots of Mighty Bûche.
Oh, okay.
I went La Bûche. Then we did a Bûche du Noël in terms of Mighty Bûche, Noel Fielding, and we made a double whammy joke. So if you haven't heard it, go back and listen to that episode. It's a really good one. But in this bit, we went different. I mean, I went La Bûche, which was really out there. But and now we're going over it. So we've ruined it now forever. In terms of
my answer to that question that you posed then is yes.
So that's what we got time for now. So Linda and Pumpkin, and we talked about the fact that Linda's family must be getting sick and tired of pumpkin because everything she bakes has pumpkin in it. But what I like is that from what they say in the judging, Linda handles the pumpkin flavour, which can be a very tricky flavour. Yeah. I mean, ask Corey. Pumpkin can be a very tricky sorry, Corey, love you. Very tricky flavour.
Yeah.
But Linda seems to balance it beautifully.
Yeah, and pairing it with the other flavours and... Because I thought, maybe she's taking this down a Halloween route because I couldn't remember. And no, it was more just like...
You know what I'd like to
some pumpkin in it.
You know what I'd like to see Linda do?
Or less Halloween, more Thanksgiving.
You know what I'd like to see Linda do?
What?
I'd like to see Linda make pumpkin scones. Ooh. If anybody out there, because I don't suspect Linda listens, but if anybody, I'm looking at a couple of you bakers who I know occasionally tune in and say hello and nice to hear. If anyone wants to message Linda and just say to Linda, hey, they've challenged you, can you do like pumpkin scones? There's a great CWA recipe. You look that up. CWA
Country Women's Association.
Yep, they make amazing pumpkin scones.
Oh, yes. Usually for a fundraising event.
Yes, usually. So
they need a new cupboard in the hall.
New
like
tea
the
set.
CWA hall, they want to get more folding chairs so half the members don't have to stand.
Yes, exactly, because, they can't with their hip.
No.
So, and I like the fact that the pumpkin and caramel, that's an interesting balance. Mm-hmm. Not what I would have thought of.
No.
So I'm again, intrigued. And Rochelle, you can see Rochelle's genuine joy when she tasted it. She's like, I was worried about that pumpkin flavour.
And it's amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
There were a few more cracks again. I think that might have also, the pumpkin might have had a bit to do with that as well.
But it doesn't really matter because it's been covered up. Unlike, I mean, not bloody Mr.
We're going to talk about him in a minute.
James,
we're going to talk about him in a minute.
Yeah.
So Sabrina, interestingly enough, like she made a gingerbread spice roll, so she sort of had a bit of practice with gingerbread early.
Just get the flavours in.
So yeah, that was sort of a bit interesting. Out of all the log and all the different logs, now everyone was straightforward with their sponge, and no one did anything stupid. And then there's James, and we picked on him in the first episode for this, but I'm sorry, man. I'm going to repeat something I said in the last episode. As the Brit, you, above everybody else, know that Gioconde in Bake Off is cursed. Now, granted, the first curse was your own damn fault.
You forgot
for forgetting the butter, and again,
bit of Jude whimsy coming through.
Jude through the pavilion.
Yeah.
But all that was forgiven when you did produce what was basically an excuse for a carrier of chocolate.
Yep.
Like, watching you roll, that might have been the bravest thing I've seen in a kitchen, ever. You were trying to... And it was quite clear that there was so much chocolate in the middle of that, like, a roll was not going to happen without ooze everywhere.
No.
And I'm watching you start the roll, and we're watching the ooze develop, and I'm just like, on one hand, this doesn't look great. On the other hand, everything about this looks amazing.
However, he should have learnt his lesson from... Pierre in regards to the mousse. Like, mousse in the bake-off tent has not got a good track record.
Especially when you're recording in summer.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I love mousse. Don't get me wrong. I am here for mousse day and night. It has to be chocolate.
I'm more squirrel, but...
Okay, Marlena.
I got there before
Melania.
I got
Yeah.
Melania. Got there before you did. Anyway,
Whatever.
So I loved James' idea. It was a chocolate orange roll. It wasn't Terry's. No, Terry didn't make that.
No.
Terry made a birch tree yule log. So let's talk about that.
Yes.
There's a great reference that about 4 people on the planet will get. So the birch tree yule log that she made. Now, I like the fact it wasn't shaped like the normal, like, simple, straightforward logs. He had the 3 different bits going off it, obviously.
Yeah.
And again, as she said, I'm surprised by the amount of my baking that involves smashing.
See, the shape of her Yule log, right? I would have done, if I could have, like, invented one, I would have used the pumpkin that Linda did.
Yep.
Made the shape like Terry's, but I would have made it Halloween themed and had it like the headless horseman from Sleepy Hollow bursting out of the tree. Like, you know, when
That could have been great.
And just, you know, in chocolate moulding. I presume you couldn't do it in that time. I mean, probably Robert's there on the end going, oh, of course you could do a headless horseman. You don't have to do the head.
Robert's like, I've made one. Here you go.
Yeah. This is my latest entrance to the royal show.
More ribbons.
That's another cheese stick for me. No, what does he eat? What does he buy?
Cheese stick.
Oh, you know how.
Corn on a stick.
Corn on a stick. That's the extra corn on a stick for him.
You need to listen to our podcast.
Sorry.
So, and Vandana now with the chocolate cherry log.
Those flavours had me.
That looked great.
It looked so sweet and beautiful. And one thing I forgot to mention about Linda's is how she did her bark with the shards of chocolate overlapping it. And then Vandana's had the rippling.
Yes.
Kind of,
And then James, of course, had the layering
Gioconde,
over the top
yeah.
of the Gioconde with the stripes.
Yeah.
So, again, I think as an episode, it's one of my favourites. Holiday can sometimes be, whenever they do a holiday one, can sometimes be a bit meh and feel like it was a bit thrown together. I thought that, again, you had an interesting mixture.
Yeah.
So you had some traditional Christmas, but you also had some Jewish in there as well.
Yeah.
And you had different techniques.
Yeah.
So you had significantly different techniques in what they were making.
Mm-hmm. And we've got to remember, this is season 1, so you're not going to see, like, you know, obscure festivals coming through. Like, they're not going to go... No, not yet. That's, you know, further down the track. As we start to, you know, broaden the audience's mindset more. What festivals would you like to see them kind of do bakes based on? What holidays? Pancake Day?
Yes, I'm all about Pancake Day. No, actually, I like things like there's the
Armistice Day.
Yeah. Poppy cake. So
it's a poppy seed and orange cake. I've done the treaty at the top.
Anyway, I can see. Look, I think there's a couple of them. Look, I think we're about to enter the season with the Japanese cherry blossoms and stuff like that.
Oh yes,
and the festivals that goes around those. I think. Yeah.
Well, they did. They brought in the mochi, didn't? Oh, that's a spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert later on. Yeah. Later on down the track. So yeah, no, I think there's a range of holidays you could look at there. Possibly some Canadian native holidays that could be done.
Yeah, like some markings of seasons or traditional days. Yeah,
I think there's a lot that could be done out there. So obviously, I think the mix though was quite good because you need to find things as well that people sort of understand and can attach to. You can't make them too obscure because trying to educate just through that isn't going to be as effective.
And I don't think it has to be about the holiday. It has to be about the bake that's associated with it. So
the bake has to be strong enough.
Yeah, but to have that research, to know that the production team have taken the time to look outside of the Anglo...
was great.
European, Western box. Good.
Exactly. So I think there's a couple of things we've all learnt from this podcast this evening. I think first thing we've all learnt, Rugelach.
Yes.
And again, I think we all watch the Rugelach channel where you watch that TV show, rate your Rugelach. It's too much fun. It's too much fun. Right. So until French patisserie semi-final.
Yeah.
Where unfortunately, of course, Terry went home. Because we started at the end, so we've got to make mention again. Poor Terry does go home.
Yeah.
And as I tweeted out, it's always horrible to watch her leave. We love Terry.
Yeah.
Like, and everyone, to be fair, is always hard. But Terry in this one was like...
Yeah, it's, for the past few weeks, as you said, since day dot, we've been saying goodbye to people we love.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't get any easier the more you watch it.
And we know they're not dying. They're still alive. They're still out there baking. We're still getting, Instagram pics and stuff. It's not... It
was like, just before we finish up,
You'll never bake again.
But just before we finish this up, for example, there was an episode last night. They led into... this episode with an episode from season 1 of The Great Australian Bake Off.
Oh, wow.
And Maggie Beer, they sent the person they were sending home. And Maggie Beer walked up to them and went, "Please don't stop baking." And I'm like, there's no rule. There's nothing where you have to stop when you go home, Maggie. I wonder if she was confused by the concept early.
Yeah, it's not
elimination.
Thinking that, no, it's like proving your worth, it's an initiation rather than a competition. Only the best will survive to bake.
Bake elimination.
Yes. Everyone else has to risk it for the biscuit. And it's either bake best or never bake again.
So, unfortunately we had to say goodbye to Terry, which was a real shame. But again, the quality of this season means that, Terry goes home, went home obviously with, head held high and knowing how well she'd done.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. As we said, you always want to be going home, baking well and just going, someone just happened to do better on the day.
Yeah.
So until next week, I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Kristie.
And we'll catch you all later.
Rugelach.